Hi everyone. As a mental health practitioner, I realized that I don't really talk about myself very often. I was going back on social media and trying to put together some slides on information about me. And I realized that there's actually not a lot on there, which I do think is professionally appropriate. I'm not here to talk about myself and my own challenges and everything like that. But obviously there is a time and a place for some more personal sharing and to get to know the human side, even behind healthcare providers. Because, little known fact, yes, healthcare providers, we are people too. So sharing a few things about myself, one thing I do like to share with people is that I'm an INFJ. That's my Myers-Briggs personality type. I really enjoy and value and find a lot of strength and meaning being an INFJ. If you're interested to learn a bit more about what that means, just Google it. Search INFJ in any search engine and you'll get a bunch of different resources that you can learn. For me, what an INFJ means is that I have almost this intuitive superpower. And when I was younger and growing up, I didn't really understand it. I just felt weird, different, strange, not in a good way, not in a unique, individual, special way. It felt like an energy that I didn't really know how to harness. So it was only in adulthood that I learned really what that intuitive sense of knowing can provide. I also didn't know what it meant and how to take care of myself as an introvert, as a feelings-based person. And so all of these things I've had to learn in adulthood. I do also identify as a highly sensitive person. So what that means for me is that I can get really overstimulated and overwhelmed by energies, by sound, by certain noises. I know that's sound, but I'm just thinking about some of my trigger points. Crunching has always been something that really just gets to me. It's almost like there's a megaphone on people crunching and it's all that I can hear sometimes. Sometimes I can tune it out or down, but sometimes it really gets to me. I also recognize that I come from a background where there was addiction and mental health challenges in my family, which is really unfortunate. I wish that there was more recovery in my family, in anywhere, but unfortunately, most of my ancestors that I've been able to see, they struggled, they had issues, and just continued to struggle and have issues throughout their lives. I think that's partially one of the reasons that I became a healthcare provider. I really wanted to understand. I wanted to understand my family, I wanted to understand myself, I wanted to understand the world. And so that's part of the push, totally an unconscious, unaware thing that drew me into psychology, because I really wanted to understand the things that growing up were very confusing, very overwhelming, and that I didn't understand and that I didn't have help to understand. I started off, my first job was in the library. My technical job was a page. Ha ha ha, got a lot of ribbing about that, but I really enjoyed it. I loved the peacefulness and the quiet of the library. Cool thing about that is that I met my now husband of 21 years, 22 years. We've been together for a long time. We met when I was a teenager. He is older than me and we just connected and we started off our relationship as friends and then it progressed into a relationship and we've been together ever since. And I really value a lot of the strengths that are in that relationship. We've grown and changed a lot together over the years, but I feel like that relationship has really provided me the platform to become myself and to discover who I am. I've always struggled a bit with friendships and relationships. I wasn't really provided much tools or guidance from my world growing up. And being pretty introverted, I also had a lot of social anxiety and shyness when I was younger. So it was hard for me to learn how to interact with people. So I still feel a lot of insecurity when it comes to friendships, especially. Always thinking that people aren't going to like me or are going to leave. But I think I'm working through that with the help of the lovely people who are in my life, and also people who've been in my life in the past. So I recognize that not all friendships are going to be forever or long term. And so every friendship I've ever had has provided me help and support along the way. I have done a little bit of adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families work in the past. I do identify as living according to, recovery principles, even though I don't identify as having addiction myself. I do recognize the importance of everything that I share with clients every day. So I haven't consumed any alcohol in, I don't know how many years. It's been quite a few now, maybe 3, 4, 5. I'm really not sure. It wasn't a super significant thing for me, but I just knew that that didn't fit with who I was and the person that I wanted to be. When I was in kind of my teenage years and approaching age 18, I really was so hating of alcohol, just from what it had sort of shown me in the people around me. And I was really judgmental of people who drank and consumed alcohol. And then that hatred sort of shifted. Then I did start to drink, and I just found it was not great. It didn't leave me to feel very good physically. And so I let it go, like I said, a number of years ago. I also don't consume any caffeine. I don't smoke. I've never used any kind of drug. Just hasn't been presented to me, and I'm grateful for that. That's not something that I would want to introduce into my system. I do like to journal. I haven't been as regular with journaling lately, but it comes and goes in my life. It's a great kind of old friend that I can turn back to whenever I'm wanting to. Sometimes I'll go through periods of more consistency. Sometimes it'll be a little more inconsistent, but I know that it's there when I need it and when it's calling to me. And that's that, listening to that intuitive voice that I have of just going and doing that when I feel I need to. I do a meditation every day. That's changed in terms of how I do it over the years. It used to be a very rigid practice of 22 minutes every day, twice a day. And I found that pretty cumbersome in terms of time. I do struggle with perfectionism, so I've learned to be a bit more flexible with that. And now I really appreciate just a nice, quiet, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, first thing in the morning to just help me to wake up, orient into my day, and just that intention of groundedness and calmness, I think serves me well throughout the rest of my day. I said my first job was as a library page. After that, I worked in retail for a number of years, and I think that really helped me to learn how to connect and interact with people. Was obviously not around anything too serious. I sold maternity clothes, but I really enjoyed all of the regular connection that I would get with people. I had to learn how to interact with so many different customers that walk through that door, and I really credit that as a strong part of my social and communication development. And I think it's a very important skill that people need exposure to and they need practice with. And now I've been a psychologist registered since 2009, so I've had literally thousands of hours of professional therapeutic conversations with people, and I recognize like that's such a value base and that's such a skill to be developed, and I carry so much gratitude for all of the people who've been willing to show up and participate in those very open, honest, vulnerable discussions. And for the INFJ part of me, I really value that. I need deep conversation. I need personal conversation. I really don't get filled up at all with things that are superficial. I don't like to just talk about the news or politics or things like that. In fact, I really have no interest in the news or politics or current affairs. It's not something that's ever stuck or resonated in my brain. Same thing with history. These things just don't connect for me. I think I really need that personal connection, that individual side. I need to hear the stories. I have done a fair bit of travel. I think I've hit a lot of the places on my bucket list in kind of the earlier parts of my life. And I really valued the places that I went and the things that I saw. I think now the places that I'm drawn to are quieter, more kind of retreat, nature-oriented places. I love going for walks and just being surrounded by trees. I find that very therapeutic, very calming, very present-orienting for me. Somewhere that I would still eventually like to visit is Auschwitz and the concentration camps. I'm very, in terms of history, that's one particular part of history that does draw me and call to me. I've always had books and read about that part in time. I think just because it was such a extreme psychological event that for someone who's interested in human psychology, how we think and the reasons that we do the things we do, I find it really fascinating, and I just feel drawn to eventually, hopefully, maybe see that. If I didn't see it, I would be okay with that, but I just feel a real kind of resonance with the extremeness of that part in our history. I am a mother, I have a daughter, chose to be part of the One and Done Club, which did come with some angst and some thinking initially, but as soon as the decision was made, felt immediately comfortable, and I've never doubted or regretted that decision since. I do have a half brother. He lives overseas and our contact is pretty limited. Growing up, at times I would identify as an only child because I primarily just lived with my parents, and he was a half brother who didn't live with us very often, would just come every second weekend sort of thing. He's older than me though, so our experiences were very different in our family. But then over time, at other times I would talk about having a sibling. So I think my identity around family and sibling versus being an only child, it was a bit of a mixed experience. I did fundamentally feel like an only child, but I had the bonus of having this person who'd show up and we could play together and have fun together every once in a while. And then as soon as we started to kind of fight or get annoyed with each other, he'd go home. So that worked fairly well. I love the work that I do. I'm really passionate about psychology. I really am happy that I found addiction work about 9 years ago. It just really fits because with addiction, you get to talk about everything, and I love that. It's not just focused on certain symptoms or behaviors. You really get to get into work and family and relationships and feelings and behaviors and understanding how we think, the reasons that we do the things we do, the brain structure, like there's just everything in it, and I love that. I find every conversation, every hour is different in its own way, even if the topic starts off the same. And it's just been such an amazing thing to hear new people's stories and to learn from people over the years. That's probably one of my more shameful secrets, is I really don't like to learn from books. I really don't like to learn from workshops. I don't find a lot of value in them. I should on myself a lot about that. I should be learning in these ways, but I really feel like I learn from people. I learn from talking to people, hearing the patterns, hearing the themes, and then connecting that to articles and research and things that I've picked up professionally, but in smaller doses. Just to sit down and go through a workshop, I really don't find a lot of value in that. I find them tedious, I find them really boring. a lot about pomp and circumstance rather than content. So I'm not a big formal professional development person. I like to read in those smaller bits and to learn from you, people. So thank you so much for all of the support you've given me in my learning over the years. Look at that, it's fun and easy to talk about myself. I could probably keep going, but I appreciate you tuning in and learning a little bit more about me on here. And I'm sure down the road I'll pop in a little bit more personal information here and there, but stay tuned for more videos on topics related to addiction, mental health, including relationships and feelings. Thanks so much, and bye for now.